Sorry, it's been several days since I last posted, but a lot has happened since then. I realized that I couldn't spend like an hour every single day editing videos to post, so I had to remove that in order to actually take the class and actually do the classwork. Here's an update on everything that transpired.
And I built this. This is a 27-inch wheel, and the idea was that for this candy sorter, the way that it would work is the candy would fall on this surface, which is the surface that I tested candy friction on, and it would drop the candy down. This would slowly rotate, and then there would be different chutes at different angles that I had measured to be optimal, so that the different candies would fall into different chutes. And I went with a big wheel because my thought was that it would be a single slow motion the whole way around, over and over and over again. And that was kind of my big point of failure. You can see here I have gears set up, and there's a kind of crazy gear ratio going on with this, where I had a motor that was about 6,000 RPM, and yet I wanted this to spin at about 1 RPM. And so I did this crazy reduction here. However, this is all just floppy cardboard and Legos, which are also floppy. And so as a result, this whole thing was floppy. And what ended up happening was when the motor was hooked up to this and this turned, and then one of these popsicle sticks, which were used to reinforce the cardboard, caught on the edge here, it caused it to sort of shred from within. And so it's not a possible solution. And so I took a step back and I said, okay, well, I have a lot to learn from this. My first lesson was garbage in, garbage out. I built this literally out of garbage. This was an old mattress box that I was like, oh, I'm gonna use this as my building material. It's out of like scrap wood that's just chunks here and there, and Legos, which are also kind of floppy. I do like how easy it is to build things with Lego, but they're just floppy. So my first lesson was garbage in, garbage out. So I'm going to use real building materials.
I had another design idea which is a little more complex, because instead of being a single rotating wheel, which I was hoping would bring the simplicity that I needed to be able to build this, it involved a reciprocating flap that went up and down like so. And just that reciprocation motion, I was afraid was going to be too complex in order to build this. To build this prototype, we had 3 days to build the prototype. I spent the entire first day getting organized.
So I've got a whole bunch of 1-inch wooden sticks, which are much better for building like a framework and a structure out of. So I'm going to use those instead of the scrap wood. Second of all, this surface here is my work area, but until last night, it was full of junk, literally full of junk. All the stuff up there was just piled on there. All the stuff under here was just piled on there. All the stuff in my toolbox was just piled in there. And I said, you know what? I was working on the floor. I was working on my kitchen floor. I was all over the place, and what I really needed was a good vise and a good flat surface that I could work on that was dedicated to work. So setting that up was part of prototyping myself and getting myself in a better place so that I can build a final product that actually works. And thirdly, I got a couple tools, because fact is that I couldn't, the reason why I went with cardboard instead of wood was because I had scissors and no saw. So I bought this saw, which is sort of multi-purpose for like plastic and tools and stuff like that. I bought a hacksaw just because, I've needed to cut metal sometimes and not been able to, like not without an angle grinder. And I'm going to try this again with better materials in a clean workspace that's slightly more organized. I know this is still a pile of junk, but hey, I'm making progress. So we'll see where I get from here.
So I bought the right tools. I was able to build a prototype, which I'll show you now, and I made significant strides in building a machine that I would not have been able to build before this class.
Okay, so here we are with iterative improvements, which was another big lesson from what I did. This wheel has 12.5-inch spokes that were the surfaces the candy would slide down. And instead, and with this design, I had to build the entire wheel, put all the spokes in with the intended surface, and assemble the whole thing with the axle in there. And then one thing that I found was that the axle was misaligned, and there was no way to align the axle because the whole thing was assembled. Now I've got this surface right here. I just hot glued 3 pieces of wood together, and this will serve the same purpose as one of those spokes. I was able to build this in 5 minutes, whereas that took me more hours than I'd like to admit. So, iterative bits of work, and now I'm gonna put something right here, just a mount to put a dowel through so that this thing can pivot up and down. Candy drops on, right there. Candy slides off depending on how much friction it's got. Wheel goes around, lifts it back up. This connection here isn't perfect, but it's adjustable, and that's what matters. Pretty good. I said before that Legos are floppy, but I needed to build something that would oscillate about once every 15 seconds in order for this to work. And so this is what I have. It's a little longer than 15 seconds to go all the way around, but this will be good. I made it tall enough so that I can have it on mounted on a piece of wood. I'm going to put a dowel through there and screw it down, and then this will oscillate, and so it'll be able to make that thing go up and down. And I've got a nice big gear ratio in there, so it should be able to muster enough force to do it pretty well. Okay, I've got my rough surface there, and it's just pressure fit in for now, which is fine because it means I can swap it out if I find something else that works better. Now I'm going to do a whole bunch of tests to see if the different candies slide out at different points. It's kind of a moment of truth.
The end result proved that my plan was never going to work. At least there's no way that it can work given my knowledge of physics. And so I think this is a lost cause. I think this would be a very difficult project for even a skilled engineer to do, and I think that I could probably put 2,000 hours into it and still end up with something that doesn't work very well. So I'm going to leave it. I learned so much from this. I cannot wait to start on my second project. I'm going to set my sights a little bit lower, and I think I have the right tools to do the next project. But overall, this was a tremendous learning experience, and I'm very happy I did this.